few enemies, whether they have announced themselves as one or not. North Korea and Iran have both been stated as a threat to the United States. My partner and I stand resolved that North Korea poses a bigger threat to the United States than Iran. Korea holds more nuclear power than Iran. Iran's army is greatly smaller than the army of North Korea. In addition, North Korea's mysteries pose an unknown threat. Observation 1. North Korea has a more substantial amount of nuclear power than Iran. New York Times. When the UN questioned North Korea of their latest publicized nuclear plant, they replied it was needed to produce electricity. This raised questions because more than half of the power was produced by coal, making a new power plant unnecessary. Iran has little to no nuclear power, while North Korea owns 34.4% of the nuclear power points in the world. Observation 2. North Korea's army is more extensive than Iran. Iran's army is only the size of 523,000 men total in active service. North Korea's army includes 1,020,000 on ground, 60,000 in Navy, and 11,000 in Air Force, making it obviously larger than Iran. Professor Moon of the Institute of Economic Research explained how North Korea keeps their armed forces out of the census to conceal the size of their population and the size of their army. Looking at the numbers, you can clearly see the size of them does pose a greater threat. Observation 3. The unknown of North Korea is more of a threat than Iran. Iran is always in our news, not to mention our watch. We're never really sure about what's going on with North Korea. Phil Stewart from the Chicago Tribune News reported that them being under a dictatorship keeps them out of the news, doing most of their business behind closed doors. Not knowing what they are doing or might be planning can be dangerous and not give us time for a counter-react what they might throw. In addition, in closing, it is clear that North Korea poses a bigger threat to the United States than Iran. North Korea is in control on more unstable nuclear plants. Also, their army is greater size in comparison to Iran. Finally, the mystery of the country possesses a greater threat that's unknown. Thank you. We now open ourselves to cross-examination.
也有代表，但是专门报道朝鲜消息的人士认为，朝军2011外界透露出一种什么样的信息呢？下面我们就来电话连线军事科学院的杜文龙研究员。
主持人你好。核背囊呢，从我们这个角度去判断，可能有两种。
士兵在胸前背的背囊，与美军以及前苏联军队开发的核背囊相冷战时期出现过的小型核武，也被称为脏弹。1985年，美国就曾派遣装备核背囊的蓝色贝雷帽特种部队，在韩国本土进行了旨在搅乱朝鲜后方的魔鬼训练。核背囊是一种放射性，
用一个普通的一个炸药，将它储存了一个放射性物质放出来就可以了。
후보의 수견인께서 한 품에 안아 키워주신 큰정 목매여 되새기며 인민들은 뜨겁게 말씀드립니다. 지뢰하는 지도자 김정일 장군님 너무 상심 마십시오. 백두산 후손들이 장군님을 모시고 수령님께서 백두산에서 시작한 길을 끝까지 갈 것입니다. 오보이 수령님 슬하에서 자라난 수천 수만의 아들 딸들이 흘리는 눈물은 수령님의 운덕이 너무 크고 잊을 수 없어 심장에서부터 다지는 가장 뜨겁고 순결한 충녀일심의 맹회 군술이었습니다. 5000년 역사에 온 나라가 이처럼 크나큰 슬픔에 잠긴 때는 일찍이 없었습니다. 외교 대표들은 김일성 주석은 세계에서 가장 위대하고 탁월한 정치가이십니다. 세계는 전설적 위인을 잃었습니다. 김일성 주석의 서거는 전 인류의 슬픔입니다라고 피력했습니다. 외국의 벗들은 세계혁명운동의 대원로이시며 인류의 탁월한 수령이신 김일성 주석의 한생은 인민의 수령의 한생. 김일성 주석은 위대한 사상리론가, 만고의 영웅, 창조와 건설의 영재. 김일성 주석의 존함은 사회주의 이념을 믿는 세계 진보적 인민들의 기억 속에 영원히 남아있을 것이라고 썼습니다.
인류 사회에 가장 걸출한 위인, 가장 위대한 수령, 만고의 영웅으로 높이 칭송받으신 위대한 수령님을 잃은 비통한 마음 안고 수령님의 영전을 찾는 사람들의 물결 끊임없이 흘러들고 있습니다. 하늘의 혈전 만리를 해치시던 그날로부터 80고령이 넘으시도록 편한 휴식 한 번 드리지 못하고 노고만 끼쳐드린 것이 한없이 가슴 아파 도사들은 눈물 속에 가슴 치며 비통한 심정을 덧칩니다. 수령님을 모시어 가장 공고한 단결 수령 강대중의 혼연일체가 그 얼마나 튼튼히 다져졌습니까? 수령님의 부르심을 받을 때마다 친아버지 앞에선 딸의 심정이었던 어젯날 이현 땅의 붉은 선동원과 수령님 이제 더는 들길을 걷지 마시라고 아뢰던 장천벌의 영웅관리위원장 온 나라의 아들, 딸들이 달려와 안기던 위대한 어버이 품을 잃었으니 이 비통한 심정 그러기에 비기겠습니까? 너의 밀림 속에서 3일 전에 첫 호성을 울리신 역사의 그날로부터 네 혁명무력의 골간을 이루는 군사지휘관들을 한 사람 한 사람 품들여 키우신 어버이 수령님의 그 노고 다 헤아릴 수 없습니다. 수령님은 영원히 전군을 승리로 이끌어주시는 승리의 기치이시고 운명이시라는 불변의 진리를 새기며 위대한 김정일 장군님 전사도 조공의 초소를 굳건히 지켜갈 것을 다짐하는 1단계 인민군 장병들. 장병들은 전화의 나날 전선과 후광의 모든 중화를 한 몸에 지니시고 군대와 인민을 영웅적인 훈회로 불러일으키신 수령님의 그 불멸의 업적 영원히 잊지 않을 것입니다.
To the economy because of the oil it produces. They have defended it without giving any specific number to the barrel of oils that Iran supplies specifically to the United States. There is a reason for this. According to the CIA World Factbook, virtually no oil is imported to the US from Iran. As far as the economy is concerned, North Korea is located in Southeast Asia and its missiles are well within range of both China and Japan, the world's first and third largest economies. It also bears nothing that these missiles have proven with their most recent test flight to be able to reach the U.S. coast. As far as oil is concerned, North Korea is well within range of Russia, which is the world's largest producer of oil according to the CIA World Factbook. Our opponents' three main points are simply incorrect assumptions based on the articles that they have taken out of context, such as the statement in their first observation according to CNNMoneyTech.com. Iran is far more dangerous than any other country. However, the article is referring to cyber attacks and statements made in their constructive is very misleading. In each issue we have presented, we provide accurate facts from transparent sources to assert that North Korea is the most dangerous country in American relations. Therefore, we stand them with the utmost resolve that North Korea is a far greater threat than Iran.
My opponent argued that Iran's army is only the size of 523,000. In truth, Iran's army has over 815,000. According to National Master, Iran's army is over the size of 815,000, proving or showing that Iran can inflict more damage and are more dangerous. My opponent also argued that North Korea's unknown is more of a threat than Iran. In truth, since we are constantly in contact with Iran, it makes them more provocative, then showing that Iran is more of a threat. My opponent also argued that Iran's blockades on oil production, in truth, they can have blockades and can alter our oil income. Also, our opponent argued that our factual quotes were inaccurate when we got all of them specifically from quotes on virtuallibrary.com, which Mr. Spanik gave us the site for. Also, my partner and I maintain that and my constructive that Iran is the foremost state sponsor of terror in the world and is labeled a terrorist state by the U.S. government. Again, according to Matthew G. Oslin, the current director of National Counterterrorism Center, my opponent has done nothing to refute this claim, and thus our claim holds that Iran is more dangerous to a threat to the U.S. than North Korea. Also, there are more modern conflicts with Iran than North Korea. Again, according to the article on foreignpolicy.com, my opponent has done nothing to refute this claim. Thus, our claim holds.
First, I'd like to start off with saying that our opponents just stated that Iran's army is 819,000, and we had stated previously that for North Korea, just on ground is 1,020,000, being greater than Iran's full army. So our opponent's third observation is based on the Middle East and the world, never linking just Iran and the United States, making their third observation irrelevant. They also failed to state whether the 10,000 centrifuges are in fact the Zippe-type centrifuge used to separate uranium, or just all types of centrifuges, because centrifuges are commonly used in hospitals and have other uses like that. Also, in observation 2, they make it clear Iran could convert their low-grade fissile material into high-grade in 9 months to create an explosive device. But again, this statement is irrelevant because none of this has actually occurred. Also, the source they use in observation 2 to support Iran's nuclear threat is invalid. The International Atomic Energy Agency is headed by Mohammad E. Badi, who says that, I quote, "In Iran, we are active in North Korea. It is an absolute black hole. To address the terrorist issue, Iran does not however, terrorists blow up nuclear bombs terrorists are able to blow up buildings and being most destructive attack sometimes in the U.S., killing approximately 3,000 people at the Twin Towers. Nuclear bombs blow up countries in Japan and North Korea's have and the weapons that North Korea possess currently could wipe out countries with the amount of atomic bombs.
From Monday to Saturday, more than 24 million people work to maintain the socialist machine of North Korea. This is the present-day result of a unique political experiment that's been running for almost 70 years. It's all at the expense of an isolated and subjugated people, or as those we spoke to during our visit prefer to say, a people protected from the outside world by the leader. The Son of Korea is how the great generals are referred to in children's songs. Kim Jong-un's exact age is a mystery, even to North Koreans. Like his father and grandfather before him, the young general is head of state in a country at war. A country with a growing economy. And a country which, however cautiously, is gradually opening its doors to investors and tourists, but at the same time remains inaccessible and mysterious. Pyongyang, the flatland, is the center of power for the North Korean regime, the capital city and the face of the republic. It's where we'll spend most of our time in this almost completely unknown and isolated country. geology professor Kim Chol-ho was given the keys to his new home. He now lives in one of the most modern buildings in Pyongyang.
살림집에 들어섰어요. 원수님께서 우리 교육자들에게 6인용 소파와 TV 위탁, 텔레비 위탁, 그다음에 부엌색 안에 그릇 6인용 그릇 세트기가 51가지 그릇 세트기들을 선물로 보내주셨습니다.
At the entrance is a poster reminding citizens that at any time they should always be ready to show respect to the great leader, Kim Jong-un. Inside, we're given a warm welcome by the proud owners of the large 240-meter flat, a gift from the Marshal to his indispensable scientists. It's an incentive to work harder and more quickly, says Chol-ho.
우리 생활이 뭐 이렇게 아직 풍족하다고 말하기는 아직 힘듭니다. 특히
A sickle, a hammer and a brush in the center of Pyongyang symbolize the solidity of the country's only political party to hold power. Almost 90% of all members of parliament belong to the Workers' Party. The remaining seats are taken by representatives of the dependent Social Democratic and Chondoist parties that have no real power. There's also a handful of so-called independent members. The last parliamentary election was held earlier this year. Kim Jong-un was re-elected as a deputy with 100% of the vote from the same assembly that chose him as the country's supreme leader. That was 2 weeks after the death of his father, Kim Jung-il, eternal General Secretary of the Workers' Party.
그날의 위대한 장군님께서는 2006년 12월 눈보라 치는 날에 찾아주셨습니다. 그때 우리가 이거 새 집을 새로 받았을 때입니다. 그래서 집을 새로 받은 지 6개월 만에 위대한 장군님께서 새 집들이를 한 우리들을 보시겠다고 우리 집에 찾아주셨습니다. 그때 그야말로 우리 온 가족은 진짜 손만 뜻밖이고 너무 기쁘기도 하고 또 추운 겨울날 장군님을 모신다고 생각하니 또 죄송하기도 하고 이저 위대한 장군님께서 들어오시면서 환한 미소를 들으시면서 들어오실 때 우리들은
Kim Kyo-son is a farmer just like his father before him. He's worked at the Mikok Collective Farm for 8 years. He joined after leaving the army where 10 years of service is obligatory for almost all men.
쌀은 사회주의고 우리 강성국가건설이 최전선입니다. 그래서 우리 농업 전사들은 이 본분을 잊지 않고 지금 우리 알고 계획을 120%나마 수행했습니다. 그래서 농사일은 진짜 노동이 노래로 되고 기쁨이 되고 있습니다. 그래서 보다시피 알겠지만 우리 이런 궁궐 같은 집에서 일하고 휴식하고 하니까 진짜 더 부러울 것도 없고 우리 농사일 한다 그러지만은 실질적으로 농사꾼들 같지 않습니다. 실질적으로 미국 내 사람들 다 봐도 알겠지만 그래서 그야말로 노동이 노래가 되고 행복이 되고 있습니다.
서명들은 당의 사상과 정책을 확고한 신념으로 삼고 언제 어디서나 당의 사상과 의도대로만 사고하고 행동하며 절대성 무조건성의 정신으로 당의 방침을 끝까지 관철하여야 합니다.
Working to uphold the system and achieving goals set by the government is a question of honor. Agricultural workers are constantly reminded of this by propaganda that's widely distributed throughout the collective farms. Loudspeakers broadcasting rousing music and speeches call farmers to their daily work. Students with revolutionary flags and flowers take turns to boost the farmers' morale. The slogans encourage everyone to be patriots and surpass the entire world. Or at least to follow the great Marshal's example and contribute as much effort as he does to ensure that his people thrive.
있단 말입니다. 그래서 저는 경례하는 김정은 원수님의 사랑이 어린 광장에서 일을 하면서 앞으로 더 많은 일을 생산해서 사진집 근처에 보내주겠다는 거 결의합니다.
Certificates on the offices of this glass factory proudly honor employees of the month and year. Last month, Oh Young-nam broke not a single sheet of plate glass while packing. He considers that an achievement.
경례하는 김정은 원수님께 조금이라도 기쁨을 드렸다는 그 기쁨이 그저 나의 가슴에 그저 작업을 남아 있었다고 생각합니다.
Students pursue the same goals. At least that's what's said in front of a camera. To serve my country, says Ji Chong-hyuk. In this case, he's talking about technological research. He's on his way to study at the country's main library, the Grand People's Study Palace.
그 길에 나도 한몫하기 위해서 지금 정보기술을 많이 공부하고 앞으로 세계를 압도하기 위해서 공부하고 있습니다.
Even prisoners are bound to contribute to the stability and development of the North Korean system. The exact number of convicts is something else that's kept secret. The punishment for any felony is compulsory labor or, for less serious offenses, community service. That's what we were openly told by Alejandro Caldebelos from Spain. As president of the Korean Friendship Association, he cooperates with the government. He helped sort out all the issues we had to face to enter the country, and he'll accompany us throughout this trip.
Creemos que la persona que es un criminal, que se ha probado su delito y que ha sido juzgado y sentenciado, debe devolver a la sociedad al menos parte de ese daño que ha hecho. Y no creemos que deba hacerlo drogándose en prisión, como en el caso de España o otros países, o sometido a todo tipo de vida corrupta y con todo tipo de facilidades, como otros sistemas penitenciarios. Creemos que debe trabajar al igual que los propios campesinos, que cosechan el arroz para dar de comer a la población. Así que sí existen trabajos forzados que no son campos de concentración. No tenemos prisioneros políticos. Ahora, si tenemos un gobierno, tenemos una Asamblea Popular Suprema, que es el Parlamento, que dictamina una ley, esa ley debe ser seguida por los ciudadanos. Por lo tanto, cualquier persona que tenga una idea diferente debe expresarla por los cauces adecuados, no creando, por ejemplo, un conflicto social o destruyendo el mobiliario urbano.
Fields, construction sites and mines are the most common destinations for prisoners sentenced to punitive labor. A foreign ministry official recently confirmed to a handful of journalists that there are indeed special camps for this kind of labor. Some agencies say their purpose is to reform criminals. High treason and subversion carry the death penalty. General Jang Song-tak was executed last year. He was the young marshal's uncle and thought to have been his mentor, the second most important figure in the country. A military tribunal accused him of corruption and plotting to topple the revolutionary North Korean regime. Our visit ends in Pyongyang's victorious War Museum. Special effects and music portray the exploits of the People's Army in their struggle against their southern neighbor and the United States. The latent conflict lasted more than 60 years, and North Korea commemorates the end of military action with a grand annual parade demonstrating its military prowess. Victory Day, as it's known here, marks the armistice in the Korean War. Last year saw the 70th anniversary parade where, as well as missiles, tanks and troops, for the first time ever, Kim Jong-un used the occasion to demonstrate to the world that North Korea had successfully produced its own drones.
놈들에게 첫 공중 포화를 덜 씌운 때처럼 지난 조국 해방 전쟁 시기
There are more than 1 million soldiers in the regular army, not including the highly militarized police. More than 15% of GDP is spent on the military. Mangyongdae Revolutionary School even prepares children. For the regime, the army is a source of inspiration and, above all, order, defining the precise military way in which society is organized, a society on constant full combat alert. This is a country based on military ideology. Absolutely everything is literally imbued with combative spirit. A metro system more than 100 meters deep was constructed in the 1970s with help from the USSR and China. This underground space would serve as a refuge in the event of a nuclear attack. A gigantic sculpture graces the southern exit from Pyongyang, where 2 women symbolized Korean reunification. On official maps, North and South are marked as a single country called the Korean People's Democratic Republic. Just 3 hours' drive along a rundown but wide, spectacularly clean and practically empty road takes you from Pyongyang to the border. This highway, with limited access, could also be used for military maneuvers. From time to time, you encounter army checkpoints where filming is strictly forbidden. Locals wait patiently in line to show their permits to pass through the barrier. Panmunjom village is where Lieutenant Colonel Nam Tong-ho delivers military history lectures for visitors. This would seem to be one of the most important tourist attractions in the country. According to the guide, in this very hall and at these very desks on July the 27th, 1953, North Korea and the USA signed the armistice agreement without the participation of the South. It was a precarious non-aggression pact that should ultimately have led to a final peace treaty, but never did. There are no South Korean soldiers to be seen along the clearly marked military border today. It's said that they keep it under surveillance using binoculars and cameras, while remaining where tourists won't see them. Technically, a state of war still exists between the parties, following the conflict that resulted in millions of casualties and ravaged. Several meters away, a group of American Christians, some of South Korean descent, pray for reunification. There are now huge differences between the two sides, historic, economic, and cultural. Even the language has begun to differ. But families living on opposite sides of this divide still try to preserve ties between close relatives torn apart by war. It's a painful issue that's often used as a bargaining chip in talks between Pyongyang and Seoul. Dozens of people from the south, all selected by drawing lots, came to the mountains in Kumpang region in North Korea's east coast in search of brothers and sisters, nephews, and even children they were never given the opportunity to know. After several years, in February, family members separated by war are granted just 3 days to see each other. For many, it's their last chance.
I don't involve any of the politics or any of the religion part, but we just wanted to, this is a one country and this is a one people.
On her second trip to the country in 8 years, Mrs. Lee met us in Kaesong, the next stop after our trip to the border.
First trip was very sad. It was really dark, no lights. You know, during the mealtime, lights go off like 5-6 times. And there are no smiles from people's face. But now I think it's economically changing, but I think some kind of life is coming back.
The differences between Kaesong and Pyongyang are striking. This city is one of the few examples of direct economic cooperation between North and South. The only joint industrial complex is based here. It encompasses over 100 South Korean companies, employing 53,000 North Koreans. Colonel Kim Chang-yun comes with us to the so-called demilitarized zone, which ironically is one of the most heavily armed areas in the world.
그것은 조선 반도를 북과 둘로 갈라놓아 우리 민이 영원히 통일을 하지 못하게 하려는 미국과 남조선 당국자들의 그릇된 정책에서 빚어진 산지하에